In the last video I did, I was talking about how so few people are offering solutions, or at least realistic solutions. And it occurred to me that people might say that maybe I offer no solutions because all I'm saying is wait for Dr. Breakdown. No, that's not what I'm saying. I certainly do think that the economy is likely to break down at some stage. I think that's unavoidable. I can't see how that can be avoided. If the economy breaks down, the welfare state will break down. If the welfare state breaks down, I think the authority of the state itself will break down, and the state will break down. If the state breaks down, people will then have to seek government voluntarily. They'll have to get access to law voluntarily through individual forms of self-government that you enter into by voting with your feet, like joining a club. And the people will, as a result of that, be forced to join together collectively, propelled but by making individual decisions which are motivated and propelled by the need for law, which enables you to survive safely and to continue to trade. And that collection of individual choices, or millions of choices individually made, will then, on the back of that, that will give rise to people's naturally coming to value civilization and culture as things that enhance, that facilitate survival and thriving. If you think of civilization as being like the structure, the scaffolding that helps us to survive and to thrive better, and culture being like the ecosystem that grows over time and enables us to thrive and makes our survival all the easier, all the better, all the more prosperous. The important thing, I think, is at the juncture. This is why I don't think I can be accused of simply saying, don't do anything, wait for the collapse to come. Because I think the important thing is that when the state breaks down, if and when it breaks down, people will need access to law. That is the juncture that people need to focus on, so that people don't simply panic and rush to any strongman, any theocrat, any gang lord, any ex-colonel who comes along waving a big stick. But I think that the doctor collapse is better than the statist solutions for a bunch of reasons. I think that the statist solutions are weak. What they look like to me is splinter organisations coming up with the little stories we used to have to write when we were at infant school, saying what I would do if I was king for a day. You remember those? You remember having to write those? That's what I think a lot of these statist solutions are like. I'm going to get a grip on power, I'll get a landslide majority, then I'll push through this lovely, this radical agenda which you like. Isn't it great? Vote for me. Okay, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I think there are two weaknesses to that. Firstly, it's unlikely. I don't think we, the people who value our own nationhood, patriotism or nationalism, I don't think we're likely to get anywhere near the reins of power. We're nowhere near the reins of power now. I don't think it's going to happen whilst the state stays up. We are currently the tiny minority of unrepresentative extremists. The violent Muslims, they are not the tiny minority of unrepresentative extremists. They're called that, but they are not. They are very representative of ordinary Muslim people's understanding of Islam, and they're certainly very representative of the Islamic faith. We are the extremists in the same way that the one-eyed man in the land of the blind is an extremist. And what that means is most people are doing what we are programmed to do, what most people are programmed to do, and that is to put individual survival before civilization, because civilization is simply an adjunct to your survival. That's its function, to create this structure, the scaffolding, to make survival and thriving easier. And civilization and culture, those things are not necessary in a ferocious, big state, corporatist welfare state. By corporatist, I mean the happy dovetailing between the big state and big business that is just organising the economy. In fact, caring about civilization and culture in a big state welfare state, that is bad for your survival, because you might find yourself getting impoverished, getting knocked out of the system, finding it impossible to earn a living. You get fired, you get fingered, you get blacklisted. And so ordinary people are doing what they're programmed to do, and that is to go along with the PC multicultural nonsense. They don't like it, but ordinary people see no reason to care enough to do anything much about it. Now that is in stark contrast to what used to happen before the age of the welfare state. Now, there's a good quote here from the 20th century historian A.J.P. Taylor, who said that, quote, "Up until August 1914, the outbreak of World War I, a sensible, law-abiding Englishman could pass through life and hardly notice the existence of the state beyond the post office and the policeman. And yet, that lack of the state, I think that was instrumental in creating the depths of patriotism which allowed 5 million men to go off and fight in appalling slaughter, and 1 million of them not to march back again. Now, I think it is only when the state stops providing and people are forced onto their own mettle that people will discover the need for civilization, the need for culture, the need for nationhood, and the value of patriotism. So, and I don't think that is going to happen whilst the state and the welfare state stay up. I think people will continue what they're doing, which is going along with it. So the ideas that are getting put forward, where some splinter party says, look at my lovely radical programme, vote for me, I'm going to get a landslide majority, then I'll push it through. I just don't think that's not going to happen. I think that's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen, in my view. And the second weakness that I see in those statist solutions is that they probably in reality favour, if they happen, the group that is able to get its hands on the reins of power and then keep a grip on power, not the one that is putting forward a stable, workable solution that you want. There are loads of splinter parties, little splinter groups, all offering their own different angles. Ethno-nationalists, civic nationalists, racial nationalists, Union Jack-waggers, Little Englanders, probably not unlike me, people who want to reduce migration, people who want to stop migration, people who want to reverse migration through repatriation. Which of those, who is to say which of those are right? The one that gets power is probably not likely to be the one that does the one thing that no one else is doing, that everyone wants. The one that's going to get power is probably going to be the one that's able to get a grip on power and then force through some kind of enabling act or some kind of Bolshevik coup. That is not a recipe for getting a good system that we want, that serves us best. I think that way of thinking, that statist way of thinking, results from an inability to think clearly. This idea that the state is a good thing, the state's always going to be there, I'll get a grip on it and I'll force through this wonderful program. I think it results from mental laziness, a failure to read, and to a certain extent an adolescent inability to grow up. Now, I think we are better off letting the state break down, and then so that it then forces people to make individual decisions, to club together, to collectivise, and on the back of that to build a sense of civilization and nationhood, rather than being a mass of people herded around at the point of a truncheon under the collective power of the state. Now, I think Dr. Breakdown has 3 advantages that I like. The first thing is I think Dr. Breakdown is most likely. I don't think there's any way, I can't see any way to prevent the breakdown of the economy, given the rapidly accelerating debt. The numbers involved are trillions. Who knows what £1 trillion, £1 trillion is? That's more money. I don't know how much money $1 trillion is. It's more than I can think about. And under the weight of financialisation of the economy, these large sums of money getting pumped into the economy, lent into the economy, creating a credit boom. Credit booms always end up the same way. I've gone through this in nerdy detail in previous videos. I'll probably go into it in even more nerdy detail in future videos. But I don't see how the economy doesn't break down under the weight of that. The second reason why I think Dr. Breakdown is more likely is because of our absurd and unprecedented belief that the state can, should and will take care of us. No, Wrong answer. That has not happened. I can't think of any society that has thought that since we crawled out of a puddle. If you get the collapse, and what that means is if the economy breaks down, the welfare state will break down. And then that belief that the state is there simply to take care of us. If the state no longer takes care of us, we will stop accepting the authority of the state. We'll start getting really angry. And if you think that the likes of Joe Biden are going to repair the weaknesses of the state, then you need your head examined. So the second reason why I think Dr. Breakdown, or the second advantage I think Dr. Breakdown has, is that Dr. Breakdown is not coercive. Dr. Breakdown doesn't force anyone to do anything. It simply allows the facts of life to force people to form their own bonds, their own laws, and to adopt their own values together in order to survive. And people in those circumstances will group together voluntarily as individuals driven together, forced together by the need for the protection of law and the enabling effect of law, that it enables people to continue to trade. On the back of that, I think you will get culture and civilization thriving naturally, like the structure and ecosystem that enable people to survive. And I think that is a much more stable, more resilient foundation. The fancy political theorist word for that is anti-fragile, i.e. it depends upon millions of little decisions being made which can't be knocked out, rather than one big linchpin which can be knocked out. I think that that voluntary individual decisions based on the need to survive, that is a stable basis for civilization. Now, the third advantage for Dr. Breakdown that I like is the aggression and firmness that I foresee it, that I can foresee Dr. Breakdown ushering in. I think Dr. Breakdown is going to prove to be a lot more hard line than any tin pot making welfare promises. When the welfare state is gone, you have to fend for yourself. And in those circumstances, no one's going to have any truck with PC multiculturalism, 71 genders on Facebook, BLM and nonsense shibboleths or rubbish about diversity being our strength. People are going to say, I have to fend for myself. I've got to survive. I don't have to listen. I'm not going to listen to any of that rubbish that forced us into the hole that we're in at the moment. And what you will see in attitudes is an earthquake followed by a long and sustained landslide. And the earthquake effect, I think, will come from the shock of people being pushed back onto their own resources, their own courage, in order to survive. And people asking that question, forget all the nonsense, forget all the talk, how do I survive? How do I thrive? And how do the people around me survive? And in those circumstances, I don't think any sane ethnic English person is going to choose a society, a system, or to live in an area which allows the presence of Islam or BLM populations within it. Because ordinary people will think to themselves, why should I pay good money in order to continue to be subjected to the levels of crime and degradation from populations and groups that at best resent me? There's no reason. Why would I do that? I have no reason to do that. And when people wake up in a bad mood and see reality, people make sober, realistic decisions. And I think following on from that, the landslide that I talk about is the feedback loops that follow on from that. The feedback loops meaning that the more people do it, the more they will people do it. The more people say no, the more they're going to say no. The more the separation hardens, the more it will harden. To illustrate that, let's say half the ethnic English population say, I only want to live among other ethnic English people, people who look, speak, think and act like me, because I know they trust them and they trust me. We have shared values. It's easy to survive and thrive in circumstances like that. Suppose half the ethnic English population say that. The other half of the English population, suppose they say, well, I'm going to carry on being PC multicultural. I like multiculturalism. I'm going to live in PC society. It's great. What they're going to find is they now have twice the level of enrichment, twice the intensity of that crime and degradation that they were experiencing before. It'll be twice as unpleasant for them. And so some of them, perhaps half of them, will say, no, I'm going to join those English people who just want to live among themselves. I disapproved of them before, but they're living a nice life. I'm going to join them. And then I'm going to change their system from within, basically just join them. And then the ethnic English who remain in the PC multicultural areas, they will find they are living in 4 times the multiculturalism and 4 times the intensity of degradation that they were living under. So you get a feedback loop, and on the basis of that, as the separation hardens, the more the separation hardens between different populations, the more it will harden. On the back of that, I think you are going to get a sense of nationhood, a sense of shared values which are necessary for your economic survival. You will see those emerging, and a shorthand for that will be group identity, patriotism, and in particular the internally cohesive, tough, exclusive and exclusivist moralistic attitudes, that kind of moralistic patriotism which is necessary for a sense of nationhood. It's ugly, it's not always that attractive, but it's necessary for the survival of the nation, for a sense of nationhood. And we, the English, our survival as a nation benefits the entire world. There are a lot of peoples around the world. It seems to me they all have the right to continue their survival. Very few of them have a duty to continue their survival. We do, we the English do, because we are indirectly the shapers and formers of the world, and that gives us a duty to survive. You don't have to like us. There are plenty of English people that I just can't stand, but you have to value our survival and our flourishing, and that is why I am betting. I think Dr. Breakdown is a much safer bet than Dr. State, Dr. Politics. I think the important thing is for people to think through how we can continue to have access to law that protects us, enables us to thrive if the state breaks down, what we do at that juncture. And that is why I keep pushing for people to think through situations realistically in the circumstances that are likely to prevail then. Thank you.